Look, for the first 4 years of trading, I was doing what almost everyone does. I was strategy hopping. I'd try something new. It would work for maybe a week. Then I'd lose a few trades and I'd think, yeah, this doesn't work. So I'd move on again and again and again. I tried breakouts, supply and demand, indicators, price action, you name it, I probably tried it. But here's the problem. I never actually gave any of them a real chance. Here's what most people don't realize. You don't need a better strategy. You need better data. Because the truth is, any strategy can look bad if you don't understand it deeply enough. And this is where I was stuck for years. Not because I wasn't working hard, but because I was always second guessing, changing rules and chasing something better instead of mastering what I already had. Everything changed when I forced myself to do one thing, stick to one strategy and actually study it. And when I say study, I don't mean just taking trades live. I mean proper backtesting, repeating the same setup over and over again until I knew it like the back of my hand. Because once I did that, something clicked. I stopped guessing, I stopped feeling emotional, and I started seeing patterns like which setups actually worked, which ones were just noise, and when I should avoid trading completely. This is where it gets really interesting, because I realized half of what I was doing wasn't even needed. Through backtesting, I was able to cut out bad setups, remove unnecessary rules, and simplify everything. And that's when my strategy changed from sometimes works to something that was structured, repeatable, and actually profitable. But here's the part most people aren't doing. I didn't just stop at backtesting. I took it one step further. I tracked all my trades, every entry, every stop loss, every take profit. Then I took that data and I uploaded it into ChatGPT. And I asked it one simple question: what is actually working here and what isn't? This is where everything leveled up. Because instead of guessing, I had data telling me which trades to cut, which setups to keep, and even what my optimal stop loss and take profit should be based on real performance. For example, I found that tight stop losses were getting hit too often and larger targets weren't being reached consistently. So instead of forcing a 1 to 3 risk reward, I adjusted based on actual data, and suddenly my results became consistent. And here's the crazy part. Once I had that clarity, the emotional side of trading almost disappeared because I wasn't guessing anymore. I was executing a plan that I had already seen work hundreds of times. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it, step by step, from how I backtest properly, how I track my data, and how you can use it to build your own profitable strategy. Because this is the part most traders skip, and it's the reason they never become profitable. Before you even open a chart, you need a plan. There are countless strategies floating around on YouTube, from trend following and mean reversion to scalping or price action. While the sheer volume of options can be overwhelming, the key is finding one that actually works for your style. For the sake of this video, I'm going to cut through the noise and show you exactly how I trade. I use the 9 and 20 EMAs. My system is a pure pullback strategy. I'm looking for the trend to breathe. The second price enters the pocket between those EMAs. I'm looking for my entry, long or short. Once I'm in, I don't mess with the trade. I run a strict 1 to 1.5 risk to reward ratio. Why? Because the data tells me to. I've backtested this relentlessly, and the numbers are clear. This setup has a 67% win rate on A plus setups and a 63% win rate on B plus setups. I didn't guess those numbers, and I didn't feel them. I took all my raw backtesting data, ran it through ChatGPT to crunch the statistics, and let the math prove the edge. If you aren't trading with a verified win rate, you aren't a trader, you're just a person with an expensive hobby. But before you risk a single dollar, you need to prove your strategy works. I use FX Replay for my backtesting. It gives you years of historical data so you can practice candle by candle without the live market stress. It's about $30 a month, but honestly, you only need it for 1 month. If you aren't willing to spend $30 to save yourself from losing thousands in the live market, you aren't a trader, you're a gambler. Get the software, run the reps, and stop guessing. Next, you need to track your data. I just use a simple Google Sheet spreadsheet, but it's not just about wins and losses, it's about the specific metrics that actually turn you into a professional. Here is exactly what I track. First, I categorize the setup grade. Not every 9 to 20 pullback is equal. An A plus setup meets every single criterion perfectly, while a B plus might be a bit more aggressive. Second, obviously we track the result. Did it hit your 1.5 target or did it hit your stop? Then we get into the advanced stuff. I track left on the table. This is the maximum move the price made after your entry. If you're consistently exiting at 1.5R, but the data shows the average move for an A plus setup is actually 3R, you're literally leaving money on the table. This column helps you mathematically optimize your take profit. Fourth is wiggle room. This is how you find your optimal stop loss. You track exactly how far the price went against you before it finally headed toward your target. For example, if you usually place your stop 10 points below the 20 EMA, but the data shows the price rarely dips more than 4 points against you before reversing, you can tighten that stop. A tighter stop means you can trade larger size while risking the exact same dollar amount. Once you have your strategy, you need to treat your data like a business. I don't sit at my desk all day chasing candles. I only trade the first 2.5 hours of the market open. That's where the real institutional volume is. If I can't find my edge by then, I'm done for the day. Let me show you exactly how I track a trade so you can stop guessing and start knowing your numbers. 1. The setup grade. The second I spot a setup, I grade it. I don't trade vibes. For me, an A plus setup is a market that is already clearly trending before it makes that pullback into the EMAs. If the market is ripping long and then dips into the pocket, that's an A plus entry. I mark that down immediately. 2. The entry and the result. Next, did the trade win? In this example, price enters the zone. In the live market, my limit order would be sitting there waiting. The market comes to me, fills me long, and we're in. We're aiming for that 1 to 1.5 risk to reward. In this case, the price hits our target. That's a win. I mark a 1 in my win-loss column. 3. Left on the table. This is where most traders stay amateur. They take their profit and stop looking at the chart. Not me. I measure exactly how much further the move went after I got out. If I exited at 1.5, but the stock ran to 4.0, comment strategy below if you want to deep dive into my trading system. Left on the I'll break down my rules for when to take this is how you mathematically decide when if you should be aiming for higher targets in the future. 4. The wiggle room. Finally, I measure the wiggle room. I look at exactly how far the trade went against me before it headed toward my target. If my stop was 7 points away, but the price usually only dips 4 points into the red, that's data. If I see that happening consistently, I can tighten my stops. Stop guessing where your stops and targets should be. Let the spreadsheet tell you where they actually belong. Once you've got at least 4 months of data, you should upload the file to ChatGPT or Gemini and give it the prompt you see here. I'll leave this in the description of the video. Your AI will look at the data and identify the optimal placement for your stop loss and take profit based on your historical performance. It will also calculate the exact win percentage of your setup and pinpoint which specific strategies are dragging you down so you know exactly what to cut and what to double down on. Once you've trimmed those weaker setups from your strategy, you have 2 choices. You can backtest the refined data to see your new projected win rate, or, my personal suggestion, you can paper trade. This lets you get comfortable executing your new and improved system in real-time market conditions without any financial risk. Comment strategy below if you want to deep dive into my trading system. I'll break down my rules for when to take an EMA entry and when to stay out.